kidding me? Oh. Well, if I'm lucky. Oh yeah. So the Kubota M5660 has a tunnel going through the oil pan where the drive line for the front wheel assist goes from the transmission back up here. So it's kind of like a split pan. There's two reservoirs, one on each side. When you change the oil in this thing, you got to remember, you don't just pick one side or the other. You pick both of them. I'm not really sure how the oil gets. I don't know if there's an oil pickup that sucks from each side of this pan, or if there's just one pickup, because there's kind of a lower portion right here, which would indicate almost that there might be a screen, a suction screen right in this area. So I don't know. I've never had any of these Kubota diesels apart, so couldn't tell you how it works. If they have a pickup, an oil pickup from one side to the other, so that it draws engine oil from each side more or less equally. Because to me, if it's only pulling from one side, this other side here would just be, a holding tank. So I don't know how they do it. There's a little copper washer. I don't know if you can see it in the video right up here. There's a little copper washer right there. Just a old school way of an old reliable way of sealing between two machine surfaces. So just want to make sure that you don't drop those in the oil pan here as it's draining. And then you have to go diving in there for it, which I really don't care to do. I'm not real thrilled with how this is set up down here, because there's these lines and stuff that run down in that area, and I don't like messes. I don't like this stuff dripping all over this, because then when you mow, it's going to get dust and dirt and chaff and all that garbage on there. It'll be a mess. Need to have some sort of a little drip tray that goes underneath here, but there's not a real good way to put anything there, unfortunately. So just touches right there. So we're going to give it another 3/4 of a turn. There's a quarter. There's a half. I think I'm maybe going just a half. She's pretty tight. Now some folks, they like to get a paint marker and write on here, the date and the hours and all that sort of stuff, but I don't like that. It looks sloppy. So in true applied OCD fashion, I have made a nice little label that goes right here. I'll even try to put it on straight. There you go. 255 hours and the date. Look at that. Does that look professional or what? Go through that. Okay. Well, give it a shot. See what happens. Either work or it won't. Oh, barely. Okay. Okay, we're going to get the old extendo funnel here. Make sure the O-ring's still intact. Everything's nice and clean over here already. And they put a really fine thread on this oil fill plug, so you have to be careful that you don't cross thread it. So you got to hold these lines out of the way, and then I usually turn it backwards a turn or so until you hear it click. That first thread will drop into place, and there we go. It was just the way it was before, where it says oil written on it upside down. Huh, in a paint marker. Can you believe that? That was before my OCD kicked in 100%. So now we use labels. Let's check the oil level. Dipsticks right here. And there it is. There's the mark. You see that little shiny mark right there? If I hold it just right, you can see a little shiny mark right there. So the dipstick has a mark that's cast into it here, and there's another one right there. So when I got the tractor, I asked the dealer, I said, so tell me where's the correct oil level on this thing? I said, because it certainly can't be right here, because the engine would basically be out of oil. And it can't be right here because now it's going to have way too much oil in it, right? They couldn't give me an answer. They couldn't say, oh yeah, it's supposed to be right here or there or there. So what I did is I drained the oil out. The first time I did the oil change, the book said it took 7.89 quarts or something like that, which to me, you throw in the amount that's in the oil filter and you're at 8 quarts. It's clearly if they're giving you a range like this, if I'm a quarter inch higher than that, it's not going to be the end of the world. So I put my 8 quarts of oil in, checked it. Actually, I ran it, checked it, and the level on the dipstick after it sat for a few minutes was right there. So I just took it in the shop and took a file and just made a little scratch mark on there that you can see here. And that's the oil level I use. So right, wrong, or otherwise, that's where it is. Carefully. Have a look there. Yeah. A little dust in there. Yes. So the big one is the primary. That's the one that catches 99% of the dirt. This one right here is a secondary and should remain in place. That way you don't, as you're cleaning this one, you're not getting dirt into the area where it can become sucked into the engine. This one looks pretty good. I mean, there's a little bit of buildup right there. Yeah, I could probably blow it out with I'll blow it out with the air compressor, then we'll stick it back in there. Okay, filter's all cleaned. This just shoves on there like that. We'll put the cover back on. It says top right there. that. Seems secure. Everything's tight. Got your little thing right there for letting the dust come out. All right, got new oil in, 2 gallons. Check the oil level, it's good. Service the air filter. Oil drain plugs are tight. I think we're ready to start it up and see how this thing works. We're gonna check it out for leaks. I don't see any leaks. Looks good. Oil change on a Kubota M5660. Couldn't be much easier. I don't know if I showed this in the last video about the Farmall oil change, but I made this little sheet metal thing right here that fits through the handle of the oil pan, and then it just has a bolt sticking out of it right there, so that you can put the oil filter over the top of that bolt, and it will let it drain out. That stuff's like a mirror. Look at that. How cool is that? The black mirror. Anyway, it holds it up above the oil level just a little bit so it's not in the soup, and it allows the oil filter to drain out, and that way it doesn't make a mess when you handle it for disposal. So I'm pretty sure that when the caveman first invented the pliers, that this was the beta version. For as primitive as they are, you can't beat these things for how handy they are. I mean, they really are not bad pliers. I use them all the time. They're about as old as dirt, as basic as you can get. But man, I'll tell you what, get them, you get out in the field and need something to move, this is the pliers to go to. Magnetized. So this little block that I'm attaching right now is what's called a crossover relief valve. So what you have, 2 different relief valves here, and you can set them by taking this cap off here, and there's a set screw in there. You can change the pressure setting. What that does is, if you were to strike an object with the corner of the blade as you're traveling along, instead of blowing a hose, because what happens when you hit something with the blade, whatever direction the cylinder is going to move, now it acts like a pump. So it's going to pressurize the line on one side or the other, depending on where you hit, how you hit the obstacle. That can cause a hose to rupture or whatever. What you do is you put this block on here with a crossover relief valve on it, and you set these pressures on these relief valves, which basically acts as an overforce mechanism. So if you strike something, the pressure will build in one line or the other, and when it gets to a certain point, it opens the relief valve, and then the fluid comes back and goes this way. That's how that works. It's a nice safety device. So now it's time to hook up the hydraulic hoses. And as you can see, I've got the Outback wrap on there. This and this, and I've got it right there, which is handy for not only protecting the hoses from abrasion or damage, but it also helps you color code them so that you know where to hook them up, so that when you operate your remote, it goes the way you want it to. So my remotes are right there. And as you can see, I used the paint marker, blue on one side and green on the other. Well, sure looks to me like they're both blue. Label maker to the rescue. Blue and green. Now I know where to hook my hoses up, and then we'll make sure it works properly, and then we'll be ready for winter. Nice and clean. There's one. There's the other. Let's give it the old college try.